Hey, how's it going everyone? My name is True Wonder Dog, and I'm here today to count down the best DLC characters from Season 1. Honestly, I had a really tough time making this list, mostly because every DLC character from Season 1 is good. Now of course there are some that are much better than others, but they're all fairly decent. So before making this video, I made sure to watch a lot of tournament footage. I also looked to other YouTubers and saw what their opinion was on this, all in order to make this countdown as accurate as possible. Now of course I will sprinkle my opinion in here and there, but for the most part I'm trying to be objective about this. Which is why the first part of this list has me very sad, because we have two characters who are competing for the last spot. So before deciding which one of them is the worst of the DLC characters, I want to go ahead and explain what makes both of them good. So first up, let's talk about Broly. Now, what makes Broly a good character is fairly straightforward. This guy has armor on everything except for his light attacks and his key attack. Everything else has armor. His anti-super dash move? That's got armor. His tackle? It's got armor. His command grab even has armor. Most characters you can jab out of their command grab setups, not Broly. He will still throw you, he has armor on those. He's just a juggernaut of a character. And on top of that, his range ain't too shabby either. This guy has pretty good range, which is nice because he doesn't have that low mix-up with his crouching light. But this guy's range is just insane on nearly all of his attacks, and once again, the mediums have armor, as does the heavy, so he has plenty of ways to get in on you. And last but not least, we gotta talk about the corner combos, because Broly can actually delete your health bar on his own, as long as he has enough meter for it. And for the cherry on top, his assist ain't too shabby either. So why is Broly competing for the last spot on this list then? He sounds pretty dang good. Well, the answer is quite simple and honestly a bit sad. Broly does not get very much damage. You have to use assist to get even a remotely good amount of damage with this character, and even then it's nothing to write home about. And that's honestly the main reason why you don't see Broly at tournaments. He simply lacks the ability to kill the opponent in 2 combos like the other good characters. In fact, he honestly has a hard time killing the opponent in 3 combos either. It usually takes him at least 4 different mix-ups to kill the opponent. In fact, I once made a joke on this channel that Broly does less damage than Yamcha. Because he does. And on top of lousy damage, Broly also has a huge hurt box on him. He's very easy to hit from very high up. And this of course opens him up to a lot more mix-ups than other characters on the roster. And even though he does have armor, it's never on startup, so the opponent can still pressure him just fine on wake up or if he's minus on block. So even though Broly has a lot of good things going for him, his huge hitbox combined with his low damage combos are why most people won't want to play him, and it's also why he's competing for the final spot on this list. So the next character I want to talk about is Base Goku. Now Base Goku does not have the armor like Broly, although he does have a command grab, which is pretty awesome. His command grab's pretty sweet. Not to mention Base Goku has easily one of the most unique supers in the game. You know what, scratch that, it is the most unique super in the game. It's just awesome. You can decide how to extend it, so it's great for mixing up the opponent even on block. You can go into a command grab at the start, so it's just a great mix-up tool. And if you have characters on your team who have died, you actually get a more damaging version of the super, which makes him a wonderful anchor in certain scenarios, because his super alone can do like 50% damage if you spend 2 bars on it. Well, when I say that, I mean after a bread and butter combo. It doesn't do that much damage on its own, but it does do a lot of damage when finishing a combo. And then on top of that, we have the litany of weird attacks that Base Goku has. So he has these ki blasts that combo into themselves, and they're from different distances, and you can chain them in different orders if you want to, which is very odd. He has a lot of weird tools at his disposal. He can charge the mini Spirit Bomb, which when he fires it off, combos into his big boy Spirit Bomb. And my gosh, this might be a slow level 3, but its damage more than makes up for it. It's just insane. Although you do have to fully charge your small Spirit Bomb, which I almost forgot about. You have to fully charge it, which is not going to happen most of the time. And if you do manage to charge it, you have to give up your mix-up and your Oki pressure. So that's a pretty high price to pay, but the damage kind of speaks for itself. It's very insane. Now the issue is, these weird tricks that Goku has, they're not really tournament viable, which is why you don't see him very much. Not to mention, I hate the light of his auto combo. I hate that it launches the opponent into the air. For me personally, it's like the anti-Bardock light. So Bardock's light is legendary. It does whatever you want it to. It pulls the opponent out of the sky for a perfect combo every time. It's just fantastic, whereas Base Goku's always kept tripping me up because the third hit of it is amazing, right? The third hit's great. But the second hit is just a real pain in the butt. It launches them too high, so if you're trying to do a regular combo string, it doesn't work out for you. You can delay it, and then it works, but that's just annoying to have to worry about, so it makes it a bit frustrating to play as him. I just don't like his auto combo. But that's not why people don't use him at tournaments. It's the fact that all of his weird gimmick stuff is just not straightforward enough, and it requires way too much effort as opposed to other characters. you're almost never going to get to charge this Spirit Bomb in a match where the opponent is really dangerous and always coming for you and always trying to pressure you. You're just not going to get it, and if you do, it means giving up the corner pressure or at least giving up your wake up game, which you don't want to do. You want to pressure the opponent on their wake up. And also, there's one more big reason you don't see base Goku at tournaments, and that's because you basically have to design your entire team around him. So in other words, if I had Kid Buu on my team, it's not a problem that his level 3 is so slow, because Kid Buu's level 1 tags into it perfectly, and you get the Spirit Bomb every single time. But unless you want to play Kid Buu, that's not really an option for you. So you really do have to structure your entire team around Goku, as opposed to him just being a nice addition to your already existing team. He doesn't really complement other characters that much, and instead relies on other characters to complement him, at least when it comes to his super and his weird litany of special abilities. And once again, I do think every character in Season 1 is viable and useful, but sadly the more technical characters tend to fall by the wayside in this game in exchange for characters who are easier with a much more straightforward playstyle. And base Goku definitely is a technical character with a lot of weird stuff, and that does make him unique, but sadly also makes him not super viable. And that's why I honestly do think that base Goku is the weakest of the DLC characters from Season 1. Even though I think he has a lot of cool stuff and probably even has more tools going for him than Broly, Broly's assist is honestly pretty useful, and he has a lot of stuff going for him like his armor and his ability to have crazy offense on the opponent, not to mention his crazy corner combos which can kill the opponent all on his own. Now again, base Goku can also get crazy damage with his Spirit Bomb, but he needs the right characters on his team, whereas Broly can get the job done all on his own if need be. So when it comes to ranking the best DLC characters, I'm going to give the number 8 spot to base Goku and the number 7 spot to Broly. Even though I do think base Goku can be a better character in the long run, Broly's just a better addition to your team and he's far more straightforward. So next up we have two more characters who I had a very tough time deciding on, especially since they're both so new. Both Cooler and Android 17 have their uses, but they're also very different from one another. So before assigning them their spot on this list, let's go ahead and talk about what makes both of them good. So first up we have Android 17. So by now basically everyone knows what makes Android 17 good, and that's the mix-up factor. This guy has a built-in 50-50 that he can change the order of, so he can go for an overhead, he can go for a fake overhead, he can go for a low. The possibilities are just endless, and if you think he's getting too predictable, he can do a barrier on you to absorb an attack. If that's a bit too slow and you can interrupt it, he can spin some bar for an instant reflect, and if he's in the corner, he can actually get a combo that way. So this guy just has a bunch of stuff he can do and 1,000 different ways to open up the opponent. I've actually made a full guide for Android 17 and Cooler if you want to check that out. Go ahead and click up in the top right. It'll go over what makes 17 so good and also Cooler as well. And last but not least, he can also chain his Rekkas into each other, so that's pretty great too, especially in the corner he gets way more combo possibilities. Now herein lies the problem with Android 17. His damage, much like Broly's, isn't that great if you manage to mix the opponent up with a Rekka. If you start his combos off like normal, he can do pretty good damage with the right assists, although Vegeta is definitely preferred. However, even then his damage is nothing to write home about, although the combos sure do look flashy, although they're quite tough to pull off too, so maybe the extra effort isn't worth the damage anyway. But the point is, Android 17 can get enough damage if you pair him up with the right person, mainly Super Saiyan Vegeta. However, most of the time his combos won't do very much damage if you start them off with the mix-up, whether that be the overhead or the low. You're not going to get as much damage afterwards if you start the combo off with that. Not to mention, Android 17's mix-ups have one crucial flaw, and I've actually pointed this out in his guide. So basically, if you're the opponent and you want to block everything 17 can do, you can mostly just crouch block the whole time and then wait for the overhead. And the second you see him leave the ground, just go for a down heavy. If he does the feint, you'll beat it. If he does the real overhead, you'll beat that too. And outside of that, he only has the low to pressure you with, or the counter. Now some players have found a workaround for this by actually doing the fake out and going into his backstep, and that will sometimes trick the opponent because it's a different type of move, but for the most part just watch for the overhead and you can down heavy him every time. Outside of that, he has no way to open you up. So even though Android 17 does have some godlike mix-ups, especially in the right hands, his damage is lower than average and his mix-ups are a bit tough to pull off unless you're a good player because, again, they're pretty predictable. You have to know how to mix it up properly, otherwise the opponent can just wait for the overhead and punish you for it. And real quick, I almost forgot to mention his supers, which aren't very great either. Yes, the level 1 does teleport behind the opponent, and that can be pretty useful, but it also switches sides, and it's a cinematic super, which means less damage if you tag into other supers, and his level 3, unless you have the opponent cornered, doesn't give you any good wake up pressure at all. So the Okizeme is pretty weak after landing it unless you have the opponent cornered. But that's most characters, right? So nothing special there. So his supers are also a bit weak. Next up, let's talk about Cooler. So Cooler is a very technical character. He has a tool to counter nearly everything the opponent has. So his tail is great for whiff punishing. Even the air version as well, it's got crazy good range on it, so you could actually backdash from the opponent and catch them if they push a button. It's very good for that. And of course the low version is fantastic too. The crouching version, just fantastic range. And his standing medium's pretty good too. Not nearly as impressive, but still a good tool nonetheless. And on top of that, he has a bunch of different lows. No crouching light that hits low, but he has a forward heavy unique attack that hits low, and he has a full screen low hitting move which can be a full combo if he vanishes. So he's got plenty of stuff going for him. And on top of that, he has a move that beats every projectile in the game, and also can be extended for a full combo if he has the right assist. So that's also really powerful as well. And to top it all off, he also has a literal counter with his level 3. So once again, that's the name of the game with Cooler, countering the opponent. And if you do it close to the ground, boom, it's a command grab, so that's very good too. Now unfortunately, the opponent can duck under it if you do it raw, or they can jump away from it. It's not instant like other command grab level 3s. That's a bit of a shame, but it's still great for countering the opponent in certain situations, and it's great for certain setups as well. So with all those fantastic tools, you might be wondering where Cooler is lacking. Well, the first big weakness is his speed. He's just not very fast, and of course that's meant to offset his amazing range. And on top of that, he's also fairly unsafe as well. This move that beats projectiles, if the opponent blocks it, it's very unsafe, and you can't even check yourself with a key attack. You instead have to cancel into a different move, maybe a special move. But none of his special moves are very fast either, so that can be its own can of worms. Not to mention his projectile from full screen, his beam projectile, is fairly slow as well. It's definitely the slowest beam projectile in the game if I'm not mistaken. Although at least he does have one. And just like Broly, Cooler has a very big hitbox on him, so it opens him up to a few more mix-ups than other characters on the roster. And last but not least, he also has the same super problems as 17, although they're not exactly the same. So his level 1 switches sides, and it's cinematic. That's not a good thing. Now his air level 1 is far superior. It's actually a very useful super. It tag cancels just fine. It's great, no problem with the air version. And the ground version also beats all beam projectiles, even if they're level 3. A lot of people don't know that. It beats level 3 supers if they're beam projectiles. It goes through all of it. And even though his level 3 is very useful like we mentioned earlier, it does also switch sides, which is very inconvenient honestly. And the Oki pressure you get afterwards is just not that good at all. Now thankfully you have fantastic range, so you can make up for it just fine, but it's just really weird that you have to give up the corner and not have good wake up pressure either. It's just not very good. So in terms of supers, both Cooler and 17 are certainly lacking. So which one do I personally feel is a bit lower on this list? This is honestly really tough. I'm going back and forth on it right now before I even say it. So I think in my honest opinion that Cooler is slightly better than Android 17, mainly due to his assist, which is an unblockable Dragon Punch, which I didn't mention by the way. This move is great for ending combos, it leads directly into his level 1 super in the air, and it's also fully invincible if you use the medium version, and it's a good assist too. It's just like adult Gohan's, it gets the opponent off you, and it's also great for combo extension as well. Whereas Android 17's assist is a barrier into an extension, but it's so slow that the timing is really annoying if you want to use it for a combo extension. It's just not really good for that. Whereas Cooler's assist is a lot more straightforward and far more versatile as well. And even though I do think Android 17's mix-ups are a great threat, even at a tournament level, I think Cooler's technicality is going to make him a little bit better in the long run. The ability to check the opponent's beam projectile from nearly full screen is going to be a great tool for people who have godlike reactions. They're going to love this thing. Not to mention he has fantastic range, which is great for whiff punishing. A lot of top players are going to love that too, and I think that you'll love it online as well. Not to mention his level 3 beats safe jump setups, which no other level 3 in the game can do that if I'm not mistaken, so that's good too. So even though I do think Cooler is a more technical character and you're not going to like him if you don't want to put the effort in other words, most of you are going to prefer using 17 if you had to, but I think Cooler as a whole is actually a more well-rounded and better character, especially if you want to take the time to use him at a high level. So when it comes to my official list for the Season 1 characters, I think Android 17 is at number 6 and Cooler is at number 5. Once again, just my opinion, please don't hang me over it. I know a lot of you probably think 17 is better, but I just think Cooler is more well-rounded. Now from here on out, the list honestly does get a lot easier in my opinion. So next up we have Vegito Blue. Now I love playing this character. It's no surprise to anyone who's watched my content on this channel. I love his unique combo strings, they're so much fun to me. I really do like this character a lot, especially his damage. This guy is insane. He just deletes the opponent's health bar. The combos I'm doing right now are just terrible because it's been a while since I've honestly played him. Oh, but my fingers haven't forgotten this little nugget right here. This fun little combo. Oh, it's so good. I love it so much. For any of you who haven't played Vegito, he can actually change the structure of his combos at the start. So he can do crouching medium into crouching light, for example, and then regular light after that, and it's just so much fun. He's just a really fun character when it comes to creating a really interesting combo. And on top of that, he has fantastic range on certain moves as well. Now the startup on them is slow, so it's an even trade. It's not a fantastic move, it's not a cheap move, but it's still a useful move. He has fantastic range, which can be great for sniping the opponent, and by that I mean whiff punishing them from very far away. It's fantastic for that. So with fantastic damage, unique combos, and good range as well, you might be wondering what makes Vegito bad, like where is he lacking, what's his weaknesses? Well, the main weakness for a lot of players at a high level is that his main way to get a slide knockdown switches sides. And that's not good. That means in order to keep the opponent in the corner, you have to do one of two things. The first and most obvious solution is to do this, right? Do a vanish, and then there you go, they're in the corner. But that costs you 1 bar. Now, if you don't want to spend the 1 bar, that means changing the start of your combo so that they switch over you, and basically you're doing a double side switch. And that keeps the opponent in the corner, and you can do Oki pressure like normal. But for a lot of players, that extra bit of thinking just isn't worth the headache. A lot of players just want that guaranteed slide knockdown with the light pseudo combo, and Vegito does not have that. He has to do his medium grab or his heavy grab if you want the slide knockdown. Now outside of that, Vegito also has some odd weaknesses here and there, the first of which could be his regular light attack. Now the good thing about this move is that it beats clashes every time. The bad thing about it is, if you whiff it, the opponent has all day to punish you for it, right? Even if you want to vanish cancel it, that's gotta cost you a bar. And then the next big weakness is his lack of ranged tools. So Vegito doesn't have many ways to deal with the opponent from a distance. He doesn't have any beam projectiles to speak of, so the opponent can super dash in on him all day if he's not ready with the down heavy. Now the cool thing is if the opponent blocks your super dash, he has one of the best baits in the game, which is his key attack, which will strike him straight from the sky, and it's a fantastic way to bait out down heavies and all manner of counterattacks, right? It's just great for baiting the opponent, it's a fantastic tool. And then on the ground he has the down key attack, which is great for sniping the opponent out of the air. So he has great options when he's close to the opponent, or even at a mid-screen distance, he has great tools there as well. But from full screen or anywhere near there, he's just lacking as a character. And that's honestly why I think Vegito belongs smack dab in the middle of this list. And next up we have Zamasu. My gosh, is this guy a technical character. However, unlike every other technical character on this list, he also has a plenty of normie attacks that are fantastic, so he's very versatile in that regard. He doesn't have to work very hard for that slide knockdown, just light will do. He's fantastic at that. He has a level 1 super, which is great for pressuring the opponent on Oki. He gets the mix-ups just like Piccolo without all the extra effort. And to top it all off, his normals aren't too shabby either. His crouching light does hit low, his standing medium has fantastic range, and honestly so does crouching medium too, and of course standing heavy is no slouch either. So he's honestly fantastic in a lot of the ways that you want a top tier character to be useful. But on top of all that, he has the technical stuff, like his flight. This might not seem very useful at first, but it's actually good for extending combos in certain situations. In fact, his flight actually allows for certain super loops in the corner, so that's just one more plus. And last but not least, we have the orbs. These things are just crazy, and with the right assist like Yamcha, you can actually combo into them and then keep the combo going. You don't actually have to give up the combo to get these bad boys out. Now, if you don't have the right assist on your team, you can of course use any slide knockdown to get them started, and then your next mix-up can just lead to a full combo, so that's very frustrating for your opponent. And as far as his weaknesses go, Zamasu doesn't really have too many. He's kinda weak from a distance because you have to charge his projectile, So that's a bit of a minus, right? If the opponent sees this, they can jump over it and super dash, so there are ways to definitely counter him from a distance. He's not very strong in that regard. And once again, even though he does have some technical options, it can be very great for opening up the opponent. A lot of players just aren't going to want to put the effort in. They want a more straightforward character, and that's honestly why he's not higher up on this list. Even though he has some of the normie combos and a lot of the features you want in a character, a lot of his more technical stuff is a bit tough to pull off properly, and there's honestly a lot of ways to escape his setups as well, even his level 1 that's supposed to lock the opponent down. So I guess what I'm saying is Zamasu is a very good character, just not a great character like the remaining 2 on this list. He definitely has the tools to get it done. He's just not quite absurd enough to reach those top 2 spots. Alright, so you likely already know who's number 1 on this list, so let's go ahead and talk about number 2 for a minute here. So we have Vegeta, the base form of Vegeta. Now this guy is aggression personified. He has so many great tools for pressuring the opponent, especially if they're in the corner. Now from a distance he's not very strong, but he does have mix-ups even off of that, so if the opponent blocks this, he has dash mix-ups. He can dash in for a cross-up, or go for a double overhead. He has plenty of options to be sure. Even after that fairly lousy ranged attack, he has mix-ups for it. Not to mention he has all the straightforward abilities that you want a character to have. He can do light, light, light to get a slide knockdown, or if you prefer, he can actually cancel into his own special move, as long as it's the heavy version, and that combos directly into his level 3. Although that lies one of the biggest problems of Vegeta in my opinion, is that if you want to combo into his level 3 outside of the corner, you almost always have to spend that extra bar, and that can be a deal breaker for a lot of players because the damage you get isn't super special. Now thankfully the pressure you get afterwards is fantastic, so his Oki pressure is basically all you want it to be. There's nothing left to be desired in terms of pressuring the opponent. So you can actually go for a cross-up, just straight up, right? And in the corner you can go for the double overhead, you can go for a throw, and even mid-screen the throw is still an option. They're at the perfect distance for it. Or of course you could go for a cross-up into an empty jump low. He can do that too. So after his level 3, he just gets tons of pressure options, whether it be mid-screen or in the corner. Now of course in the corner it just gets a little bit better. And speaking of the corner, he also has the corner loops. And this can lead to some of the best damage in the game in terms of how little meter it costs. Although to be fair, I don't like doing them. The timing is very awkward for me. I've heard other people say that it's not tough for them at all, but for me personally, it's actually pretty difficult, and I love me some combos in this game. You all know that. I love the combos in this game. But these corner loops with Vegeta, my goodness, I don't like doing them at all. They're very frustrating for me. The timing is very awkward. But if you do take the time to master these corner combos, then you're rewarded with pretty good damage. And of course, one more thing to talk about is his command grab. This move actually combos into itself, no problem, so that can lead into a full combo including level 3, and you can also add it to the end of any combo as long as the opponent's close enough, and it won't actually scale the super that comes after. It only scales damage if you use it at the start of a combo. But if you use it to end the combo, there's no actual damage loss, it's still the same. So that's also pretty good. Not to mention his teleporting overhead, which I didn't really talk about at all yet. This thing is just fantastic. Even if the opponent blocks it, you can use an assist and then go for a mix-up afterwards. So it's just a fantastic tool. It tracks them all the way no matter where they are. You can get them. It's just a fantastic tool. Honestly, Vegeta only has 2 main weaknesses. His range game, right? He's not very strong from a distance, although you can control the angle of this thing, which is pretty cool. You can make it go further, you can make it go middle, or you can make it go up. So it's got different angles, that's pretty cool. But from a distance, overall, Vegeta's not very good, and his second big weakness is not being Bardock. That's honestly it. So let's go ahead and talk about Bardock, number 1 on this list, the best character from Season 1. I'm sure a lot of you knew it, nobody's surprised. And I'm sure you've all seen entire videos talking about why he's so fantastic, including one of my videos. But let's go ahead and reiterate it here. So, first up we have Rebellion Spear. This move is so good that it makes you angry when you think about it. Now, it has been made a bit more minus on block, but there's still basically 0 consequences for doing this thing. Even on whiff, it's very hard to punish. You can do it in certain situations, I certainly have with Android 21, but it's just a fantastic move. It's extremely fast, got fantastic range, and it leads to full combos, and it's also great for extending combos in the corner, so it's just all around good. And that's not even mentioning his anti-air version, or the medium version, which is also fantastic. It's great for extending combos, especially the airborne version. Just leads to some crazy corner combos, and Bardock's damage is just great. It's not the highest in the game, but considering how good he is at everything else, especially offense, it's honestly much better than it deserves to be. So basically the main reason most players love Bardock is his crazy fast range and his great pressure, his great combo extensions in the corner, and his assist ain't too shabby because it's his Rebellion Spear, so he's just great at pressuring the opponent. He's offense personified. But even outside of that, he has other qualities as well. So for example, his supers come in a lot of flavors. So you have the level 1, which is a full screen projectile. But if you want to do the alternate version, this bad boy leads to some of the most crazy and absurdly unfair corner combos in the game. And I say unfair because the amount of damage they get for how little effort they take is just a sin. It's a crime. You're stealing the opponent's health bar with this thing. And if you want to spin the extra bar, you can. You can extend it for a bit more extra damage. So he's basically Beerus in that regard, right? He can extend the damage, so that's just one more plus. And then of course we have the level 3, which in my opinion is the best level 3 in the entire game. And some people ask me why I think that. The main reason is the setup you get afterwards, right? The opponent is at the perfect distance for a setup, especially in the corner, and a lot of level 3s don't give you the hard knockdown if the opponent's high into the air. But Bardock don't care. Even if you're all the way in the sky, Bardock will still put you all the way on the ground for that great wake-up pressure. So basically, Bardock is fantastic at pressuring the opponent, whether it be by his supers, or his Rebellion Spear, or his Air Rebellion Spear, which by the way allows him to tag out on his own. A lot of characters have to vanish and spin that bar to actually tag out the player. Not Bardock though, he can just do it on his own without spending any bar, so that's just one more plus. So even though it pains me to say it, I do believe that Bardock is the best character from Season 1. In terms of his competitiveness, he's certainly not the flashiest character, I think that goes to Vegito, and he's not the most technical character, I think that goes to Cooler, 17, or maybe even Zamasu. But when it comes to pressuring the opponent, getting the job done, and just deleting the opponent's health bar, the gold medal definitely goes to Bardock. Thanks so much for watching everyone, and I hope you enjoyed my countdown and honestly a review of Season 1 in general. If you did, then please leave a like down below, it really does help my channel out a lot. And while you're down there, why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.